Welcome to C12. It's the 18th of May, our 9th episode. C12 is brought to you by Mingoville Fun Clock. Mingoville Fun Clock is an educational game that will teach your kids to tell time. Fun Clock is created by the award-winning educational company Mingoville and available for Android and iOS devices. Visit MingovilleFunClock.com and follow them on Twitter at Mingoville. We thank them for their support of C12. In fact, I interviewed their founder not so long ago on C12, and actually it's a really cool product with implications not just for telling time, which some people say is an anachronism, but certainly for fraction manipulation and all those good things that come from the analog clock. So definitely check out MingovilleFunClock.com. Welcome to C12. I'm Christopher Dawson. This week in K12 news, just share a great experience I had earlier this week. Went down to visit Adobe's center down in New York and had a really cool day with some of the project managers for their creative suite, which till now has seemed sort of out of reach of mainstream K12 schools. It's a bit on the expensive side and was sort of relegated to really the technical schools or Voc Tech schools. Now with their subscription service and some interesting licensing, it's definitely a little more within reach of schools, K12 schools, that is, in comprehensive K12 schools. But in particular, I want to call out Project Muse. It's no longer called Project Muse. That was back when it was in Adobe's labs. Adobe had actually killed off this really rich WYSIWYG editor for websites, and they brought it back, and it's better than ever. It started shipping last Friday, and it is actually just an incredible tool for creating websites very quickly with little technical skill. So if you're a vaguely savvy teacher and would like to not go down the road of a content management system like WordPress or Joomla or Drupal, but instead rather just put together a website that's slick and interactive and looks good and professional without spending too much time on it, Project Muse is definitely worth checking out. Every subscription to Muse comes with free hosting on Adobe's Business Catalyst site, so you can actually look at analytics and stuff too. Actually well worth downloading the entire creative suite. There's a master collections available for a free download. It's only for a month, of course, but actually worth checking out if you're an art teacher. The new version of Illustrator is really pretty incredible, and all of these things can be purchased in smaller suites with great educational pricing. I won't say great educational pricing, but somewhat reasonable educational pricing. So definitely worth some consideration if you are giving thought to a media lab or coming into the summertime. It is time to spend a little bit of money, what little money there is, looking for a media lab upgrade, whether it's art or design. Definitely worth a look. And so another story on video. This is coming from eSchool News. There's a new deal with PBS, and actually there's a company called Safari Montage. It's expected to become the primary provider of streaming video from PBS. And Safari Montage is, as they say on eSchool News, in the figurative arena of content distribution. So the Safari Montage, a K12 digital media management and distribution solution, has been taking no prisoners. It is actually really quite a comprehensive solution. They're adding 300 PBS programs and series to their digital platform, and they already offer 650. So quite a comprehensive platform, and PBS has always been actually a pretty reasonable resource, especially on the K through 6 side of things, in terms of finding content and things to share with students, video, and now more than ever it can just be streamed. I still know of plenty of schools that have old video cassettes of taped programs from PBS. I think hopefully those days are almost behind us, and looks like Safari Montage may be pushing that to the fore. So definitely another thing to take a look at, but keep an eye on PBS for additional new content and new ways of delivering that content. Should also become a little bit richer as well. Not that PBS doesn't have good stuff, but should become a little more visually engaging for our students as a result of this partnership. Next story comes from Yahoo News. I got a couple stories from Yahoo News, actually. Not my usual source of news, but there are a few good ones that deserve to look. An angry mom, as this contributor says, deserved a taser shock at her son's school. And the story itself is a bit fantastic. Mom comes in, complaining about how her child was disciplined, gets angry, not satisfied with the outcome. The school security officer says that she doesn't settle down, he's going to taser her, and in fact she didn't settle down, so he did taser her. She was warned, and I think that the point here is not so much that a mom got tasered at a school, which is either sad or funny depending on your mood for the day, but it's more the fact that parents need to be an engaged part of education and partners in education, and we need to work further towards ending this us versus them kind of mentality, and the teachers versus the parents, the administrators versus the parents, and in fact administrators versus teachers. These things need to be part of a community, and in a fully functional community, those people and the components of the community that can't work within it are removed. And this is not the way to build consensus and build partnerships or even build reform or change or positive good feelings. Whether it's tasering the mom or the mom being angry, or just parents who are not willing to have reasonable conversations about what's happening in the schools, or administrators not being willing to engage parents, none of those things work. And so anything we can do to promote a conversation that doesn't involve high voltage electricity is probably a better approach. So just kind of almost a fun story for Friday, but also more than that, and I hope something inspiring as we wrap up this school year and plan for the next. Let's do things a little better and keep those security officers out of schools when we can, and help set a better tone for next year. Speaking of us against them, another story. This is another story from Yahoo News. A group called Students Matter in California is now suing the state of California to remove teacher protections. And teacher protections in California are not unlike those across the country. Basically, teachers hit a point of tenure in some districts or states. That's 3 years. In some, in California, it happens to be 18 months. So the minute a teacher has been teaching for 18 months, they are protected. And not just in terms of seniority, but in terms of removing an ineffective teacher, even if that ineffectiveness really emerges after significant mentoring, significant work with a teacher, it becomes very, very difficult to dismiss a teacher. As they point out here, what they ask, or the lawsuit asks, what does it take to dismiss a California public school teacher? Union-negotiated permanent employment status requires school administrators to participate in investigations, hearings, union grievances, administrative appeals, court challenges, and rehearings, all of which can and often do take multiple years and cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars before they dismiss a teacher. The complaint notes that over the course of 10 years, the Los Angeles Unified School District spent $3.5 million in an effort to fire 7 teachers over poor classroom performance. Not the best use of our school dollars. Not everyone is a perfect teacher. And not everyone is well suited to the classroom, and that sometimes doesn't emerge for a while. Not saying we should be able to just fire people willy-nilly, but in the rest of the world, people aren't doing their jobs well, aren't good at their jobs, and they've worked through professional development, and there have been reasonable steps taken to provide training, then gosh, it does seem as though, I know that I would be fired if I wasn't good at my job. So it's a hard thing for people to stomach that the same rules don't apply to teachers. There are obviously other union jobs that are protected in similar ways, but even those union protections are eroding. Better for worse, however you feel about it. I think what we need to all realize is that the key here, our students need to come first, and if they're not being well served by their teachers, then those teachers need all the resources they can get, and then we need to be able to take other steps. So there's our next story. Here's a cooler story, though, actually. Facebook and Edutopia are collaborated on a social media guide. And Edutopia, of course, is run by the George Lucas Educational Foundation. And then this is a partnership with Facebook, the goal of which is to help schools create social media guidelines. And we've talked about this throughout EduQuest for a while, as well as in lots of other fora. Really, it's social media doesn't need to be a bad word in schools, but just as with internet access and other policies, there does need to be a reasonable set of guidelines around the use of social media, whether that's encouraging teachers to create Facebook pages to interact with their students, to use Twitter in the classroom, but to use reasonable hashtagging, to be forward and transparent, whatever it takes. The idea is that you need guidelines around this, and it's no longer enough to simply have a set of internet access policies. Really, social media is such an important and critical part of our lives, whether in the business world, for our students, or even for teachers. It's something I think can be shoved out too much longer, no matter how hard we try. If we're going to allow it in, though, it needs to be done in a thoughtful way with appropriate policies to back it up. So definitely check out the How to Create Social Media Guidelines for Your School. It's a free guide. You can get it on Edutopia, and the links to that will be on the C12 page. So the next story, the last story I have for today, it's actually a blog, but I'm not putting it in the blog section because I think it brings up more newsy sorts of issues, but also just a topic for consideration as you head into the weekend. Or as you're in the weekend by the time you listen to this, probably. This is on Ed Week, and it was a blog written about technology and how it can lead to the unbundling, as it's called in schools. There's some recent research from Fordham University, and really what these researchers are recommending is that schools as institutions be basically unbundled and students be able to take the sorts of courses and classes that they need a la carte from various online resources. And a few of us kind of deeply in the online education world would disagree that there's lots of great resources outside of the school walls. Those resources should be given some weight and some credentialing, and potentially even given credit if they've been vetted and they're reasonable. I think most people, things from whether it's Khan Academy or MITx or these other edX initiatives, open educational resources. I think most of us would agree that they are at least as good as what most students will get in a regular school, and in fact may not be accessible to students in, say, rural schools or inner city schools that can attract, really a comprehensive set of educational classes, advanced AP classes, for example, or a wide variety of AP classes, even classes for students who are struggling with special needs. So I think most of us would agree that these are positive things. The author, though, talks about how the school itself is an important institution. So what I want you to be thinking about is as this movement towards acceptance and credentialing of those classes that we can take online independently, as that move slowly takes place, what role does the school actually have? I'd love to have you give feedback, and feel free to include it send it to me via Twitter at MRD at AHS. Love to hear your thoughts. But what role does the school as an institution serve? For some students, maybe it doesn't serve very much. In fact, students who are bullied or different struggle. Sometimes it can actually be a harmful thing if it's not put together correctly. Other students thrive in that environment. The question is, do we allow those students who aren't thriving to look elsewhere, and what that all means, and we need to decide what that all means, and what the implications are for that. So there's your C12 pondering thought for the weekend. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. I look forward to talking to you again next week on C12.